Hi there, and welcome to this Blend Ed event. My name is Kate McMillan. I'm a teaching and learning consultant at the Connected Learning Centre, and I'm here today with Frida Dan-Mary, and we are going to be talking about collaborating with experts. Hi, Frida.
Hi, Caitlin. Great to be here today. So today we're going to be exploring how educators can collaborate with external experts. As Caitlin mentioned, my name is Frida Dan-Mary. I'm the founder and CEO of Learning Connected. I'll share a little bit more as to what I do a little bit later on. So a brief introduction to me. So my background, I wouldn't say it's the sort of traditional. I began by studying biology with a real love for plant science, and I took that further by pursuing a career in conservation. And during this time, I had a bit of work experience working for an NGO that specialized in human rights. And it made me think about pursuing a career in criminal justice. So I took an MSc in criminal justice policy, and I did some research on just how much holistic education can have a positive impact on young people and prevent them from escalating throughout the criminal justice system. So I retrained. I trained as a science teacher, and I taught in inner London for 3 years. I then taught abroad in Kazakhstan, the Czech Republic. And during this time, I got really curious as to how we can use technology to enhance the learning of students. And over time, I decided to transition into EdTech. So a brief overview of what this session will involve. I'm going to begin by discussing the future of work. We're also going to explore the benefits of working collaboratively with external experts. I'm going to give you some international case studies. And also we're going to explore an action plan where you can find out how you can collaborate with external experts. According to the World Economic Forum, approximately 50% of us will reskill in the next 5 years. This is due to the pandemic and increasing automation transforming jobs. So today's students are more likely to have multiple career paths than their parents. And approximately 65% of children entering primary schools today will end up with jobs that don't exist. So the question is, how can we prepare our students for the future when we don't necessarily know exactly what it involves? And my answer to that is that it's important that we expose our students to a variety of experiences and to a variety of external experts so they get a real feel for what certain jobs might involve and what skill sets they might have to develop in the future. A lot of research has been done on students' preparedness for the future of work, particularly by the Gatsby Foundation. So if we have a look at this, good career guidance helps inspire pupils towards further study and enables them to make informed decisions whenever choices are open to them. It helps them to understand enough about the world of work to know what skills they need to succeed. It's important for social mobility because it helps open pupils' eyes to careers they may not have considered. Now, the Gatsby Foundation carried out some research where they looked at different countries and thought about, okay, what makes a good careers guidance? And from this, they developed 8 benchmarks, which we're going to explore. I'm going to show you each benchmark, and I'm going to give you an example. So, for example, they highlighted that it's good practice for students to have a stable careers program and for parents and carers to be aware of it. So this will be embedded throughout the whole learning, the whole education experience at school. Another example is for them to be learning from career and labour market information. So each school should have a careers advisor that's really supporting the students. And also addressing the need of each pupil. So you have different careers guided needs at different stages. So for example, the careers guidance that a year 7 might get will be incredibly different to what a year 12 will get. And also it's important that each pupil has a personalized approach. So each student has personalized advice given to them. And also creating links between the curriculum and learning about different careers. So for example, you might have a STEM subject teacher who can talk about a particular subject and say, okay, this point is actually related to this career. So again, you're really making students aware of how their learning is relevant to future careers. Also giving students encounters with employers and employees. So again, you can give them a range of enrichment activities so they can learn from employers. So for example, it could be a workshop or it could be a webinar. Also giving them experiences of workplaces. So it might be where they have an experience for a few weeks and they come back and share the skills that they learned. So when I worked at PyTop, we worked with School 21, where we had students come and work with us for a few weeks, and they got to learn, for example, how they might build a marketing strategy, how they might actually develop an educational resource, how they might engage with community. So again, after doing this, they were exposed to different things they might not necessarily have been exposed to at school, but they actually could take that and they could bring it back to learning and think about, okay, how can I create a strategy to learn about this? And also it's incredibly relevant to their future careers as well. Also giving them encounters with further and higher education so that they understand the learning opportunities that are available to them. And also for them to have personal guidance. They have guidance interviews with a career advisor. So a quote from the Gatsby Foundation: employers can give an authentic picture of work that schools alone can never convey, but they need to work in close collaboration with schools. So again, as teachers, we're doing all that we can to ensure our students' learning needs are being met, to ensure that they're safe and well. But it's also important for us to think about how can we really enrich their learning? How can we consult with other people outside of the school community to ensure that our students are developing the skill sets they need for the future? So when I talk about involving external experts, I'm really referring to encounters with employers and employees. So we're focusing on the bottom left benchmark. Before we talk about establishing collaborative relationships with external experts, we're going to talk about what exactly is a collaborative relationship and what exactly, or who exactly, is an external expert. So a collaborative relationship is when two or more people or organizations work together for mutual benefit, and it allows the collaborating parties to achieve shared goals, which they could otherwise not achieve alone. So who are external experts? They're people from a wide range of backgrounds who have knowledge and expertise in a particular professional area. So it could be community leaders, designers, scientists, engineers, parents, and many others. There's so many benefits of working collaboratively with external experts. And the key benefit is that it places classroom learning in context. I'm sure as a teacher, you have experiences where students say, what is the point of learning this? What is the relevance of it? And it really makes things clearer to them when someone comes along and says, actually, this is relevant. I use it in my workplace in this way. When you bring in an external expert, you allow them to impart knowledge and positively impact on the skills and attitudes of your learners. You also get to develop good practice and innovation between the teachers, experts, and students. So you can engage with external experts in so many different ways. You can have talks, you can refer your students to talks and websites that are pre-recorded online. I'm going to share some sources at the end. You can have CV workshops, also mock interviews. There could be enterprise activities. So for example, you could have a week where someone comes in and you have some entrepreneurship education, and then the students go away and they develop their own business ideas. And at the end of the week, students have their own enterprise day and people buy things. Also employer deliver classroom learning, where they might already have a program that's already developed and they come in and deliver it in your school. They might have workshops that take place over different periods of time. And you might also have mentoring. So what does successful collaboration look like? So you have shared leadership, shared values, shared visions, goals, and commitment to development. So it's really important that both parties involved are clear of exactly what the objectives are of this particular activity. What do you want to achieve? What kind of impact do you want it to have on your students? And also, how is this project going to be developed? Also, it's important for everyone to have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. How is this going to be planned? And also, how do you prefer to communicate? How does the external expert prefer to communicate? When is the best time to contact them? And how are you going to measure the impact of the actual project? What performance outcomes will you use? And also, for example, if you have an edtech that is doing user testing, they might need to think about, okay, we want to do this, but again, is it going to be useful to your students? What skills are they going to develop? It's something that you need to be upfront about before they actually come to your school. So I'm going to give you some case studies from the Learning Connected community, and I'm also going to tell you what Learning Connected does. Learning Connected is a global platform that empowers educators to design impactful learning experiences so that today's learners thrive and shape their world for the better. We offer a diverse program of engagement between makers, student, academia, and industry experts who are delivering industry-leading panel discussions, events, and workshops. So, for example, we delivered online lectures and workshops, particularly focusing on embedding entrepreneurship education in higher education. So most recently engaged with a group of students who were focusing on healthcare and nursing. And then we've got the students to reflect on exactly what issues exist due to COVID-19. How has it impacted on their patients, for example? So we got them to problem solve and critically reflect and think about, okay, what kind of enterprise would I set up to meet their needs during this time? So not only did they develop solutions to real world problems, it really gave them a chance to approach their subject from a different perspective. We're also delivering a webinar series. So we are bringing entrepreneurs working in African countries, showing how they develop enterprises that solve sustainable development challenges. So the outcome of this is that students have the opportunity to gain insight into developing sustainable enterprises. It also exposes them to diverse perspectives on sustainability and also shows the different pathways that people have taken into actually setting up these businesses. So we have our selection of entrepreneurs, but they all had very different starting points. Some escalated throughout their adult education informal education system. Some of them came from engineering backgrounds, some of them came from business backgrounds, some of them came from medical backgrounds. So again, it gives students the opportunity to find out exactly how they can apply the theory of their learning into real world situations. Students get to submit questions to the speakers, and it really gives them guidance on the next steps they can take for their career. My next examples come from a book that teachers within our community created. So Marina Gardasch is an educator from Ukraine. She teaches biology and chemistry, and she really wanted to develop the research skills of her students when they were studying transmissible diseases. And this took place way before COVID-19. So she got her students to explore different types of interviews in research by getting them to interview different healthcare experts and the wider community. So in this case, she found the experts. She didn't get the students to find them, she found them herself. And then she invited them to the school on a particular day. She then shared this with her students and then encouraged them to think about, okay, what questions might you ask these different professionals? And she got them to develop a bank of questions and also interview different people in the school. The students then interviewed their experts and filmed them, and then they summarized their understanding of the topic through making mini documentaries. These documentaries were then shared with other students within the school, and they commented on one another's videos. So again, this really deepened their learning on these transmissible diseases. Okay, so we're now onto the action plan section. And this action plan consists of these parts: how to identify opportunities for collaborating with external experts, locating the external expert, networking with external experts, and collaboratively planning with external experts. So how do you identify opportunities for collaborating with external experts? I really recommend that you go through the curriculum for whatever subject you teach, and you identify areas that can be linked to real world context. And this might already be done. So throughout my experiences, for example, with the IB curriculum, I know that it makes references between subjects and also with real world examples. So again, that might make it easier. And I know that other exam boards do something very similar as well. So I recommend that you annotate with ideas and you share your annotations with your colleagues for further discussion. And you might choose to do this with Google Docs, for example. So you can share the document with your team and everyone can make their suggestions as to which areas might be a good idea to take forward to find an external expert to elaborate on. So after you have this brainstorming session, it'll be great to reflect again on this document with everyone's annotations and to sort through the ideas and think about, okay, which ones might be the best ones, which ones might be more impactful. So this might be a difficult process, and I recommend that you select the ideas that you can imagine your group that you know really well will engage with and feel really connected to, as this is more likely to deepen their learning experience. So how do you locate the external experts? So you can now start thinking about the most suitable people or organisations for this project. So I suggest that you create a mind map where you're incorporating the chosen curriculum areas that could be linked to real world contexts. So you can have branches linking the selected ideas to related organisations or the desired subject matter experts and the skills and competencies required. You can also add the types of classroom activities you envisage, so the project duration and the budget as well. And I really recommend a tool called Coggle, and it is where your whole team can actually collaborate and create this brainstorming, or I'll call it a vision board for your external expert. This is an example of Cogglet, and you can create live mind maps. So this is my example. You might decide to do it in a different way. So you've got your collaborate with external experts. You can put your curriculum areas here. You can write down names of experts or people that you've found. And the great thing is that you put pictures here. You can link things as well, so that you really have a resource that you can quickly find external experts on and contact them. So locating the external expert. So once you've done the mind map activity, you can reflect on your school and personal networks and think about, do you have anyone already that works in these areas? Maybe you can share it with your friends and think about if they know anyone who works in these areas. If not, that's absolutely fine. We're going to discuss the next steps you can take to find more people. So I really recommend networking with external experts. And you can do this in various ways. So again, are there any parents who or carers who can support on this? Do they work in certain areas? Or are there local organisations that you can actually pop into and ask, okay, do you have any programmes on this area, or do you actually have any programmes that can be different in our school? Are there other community connections that you can connect with? Local libraries, museums and other cultural centres as well. For example, the Africa Centre, who we'll be collaborating with for our webinar, they created a series of programmes for schools in London where they taught different students about African culture and music. So they'd have African musicians who would visit schools and carry out various workshops as well. I highly recommend Eventbrite as well, where you can find out about upcoming events for your students as well. So you can share your passions for collaborative work with event attendees and speakers. And LinkedIn is a fantastic tool for networking. You can initiate discussion with potential collaborators. Here's an external expert checklist, and these are things that you can think about before you start reaching out to people, and you can also talk about these points with them when you reach out to them. So collaboratively planning the activity, and again, this really depends on exactly how you plan to engage with the external expert. They might already have a program together. It might be a simple question and answering session. So again, or it might be a 6-week program. So whatever you do, it's important that everyone is aware of their roles and responsibilities. Really important that you brief the expert on the prior knowledge of students. So for example, if it's a workshop on photosynthesis and you haven't delivered it, really important that you cover that with the students beforehand. Or if you've already discussed photosynthesis, really discuss with the expert the level to which you've delivered it. They might come in and pitch it at AS level students when really you've got students who have knowledge at GCSE level. So some external experts have had training for working in schools with children and young people. Some haven't. So it's important that you engage with the external expert, find out about their experiences, share some teaching tips if they like to know, just to support them in the classroom. And also talk about how frequently you're going to communicate with one another. Agree on how the external expert will contribute to the project objectives, the approach to be taken, and the stages of project development. If you're creating something from scratch, I really recommend Adeo's Design Thinking for Educators toolkit, so you can engage your expert in the process of designing a meaningful learning experience for your students. So thank you for listening to this presentation. If you want to find out more about Learning Connected, here is how you can connect with us, and here's our website.
Fabulous, thank you, Frida. We are now going to move into the Q&A portion of the session. So I've been avidly making notes as you've been speaking. And very fittingly, with the title of this programme, of Blended, it's great that you've recommended resources and things that are really embedded in your practice that are already blended learning, a combination of in-person and online, of synchronous and asynchronous. It's really what we're talking about, and you're doing it already, which is fab. But what I was wondering is how the last year, for those watching this a bit later, we're recording this in early 2021, so basically a year into the COVID-19 lockdowns. How do you think that's shifted the ability of schools and organisations to collaborate with external experts? Because I would guess, and maybe I'm wrong, but the shift to online delivery and everyone kind of being a bit more at home with online delivery might be making getting expert time a bit easier.
Mm-hmm. I have noticed that there are much more webinars available for students related to careers, which I think is fantastic. So students, I feel that there are more online opportunities for students to engage with potential employers and find out more on what certain careers involve. And I think that lots of organisations have become more creative in the ways in which they share this information as well. So, for example, I really am loving what your organisation is doing as well. Just having these short videos where students can tune in and just find out, okay, I can find out about this particular career in 3 minutes time, and so on. So I think sometimes in the past, if someone said we're going to find an external expert, someone might think, oh my goodness, I'm going to have to take 3 months out and I'm going to have to plan this complex program. It doesn't necessarily involve, it can be that way if you want it to be, but it can also be that you just find a website, you find a webinar, or you find a clip, and then you talk about it. Or it might be, for example, you find someone and you have them in whatever tool the school uses, for example, Microsoft Teams, and then students get to interview that person online as well. So I feel that things have gotten better on the digital side. People have embraced it more during this time.
Yeah, definitely. And just to let people know, the programme that Frida was referring to there is Tech Pathways London, where we do have a series of interviews with different people who work in tech careers in London. So if you are interested, check out techpathways.london. Excellent plug there. Thank you very much. I wanted to also ask you about the international nature of some of the work that you're doing. So I think I was trying to write down the countries that you mentioned, or the continents that you mentioned, and I think we went from Ukraine and the UK to Germany and Africa.
Yes.
What do you think that the ability to do some of this work in a kind of blended fashion, so with some of it in person and some of it online, do you think that helps us work a bit more internationally?
Absolutely. And I think it's fantastic that we get to hear the narratives of individuals working from diverse backgrounds as well. And I absolutely love that. I absolutely love seeing webinars where you get to interact with people that probably 5 years ago it would have been incredibly difficult to engage with them. And I think we can learn from one another in so many different ways. And again, it's just interacting with these international organisations really gives us something to reflect on and take away and to really develop what we're doing in our own organisations.
Thanks. One more question for you, which is kind of harking back to something that you were talking about at the beginning of your session, which I just wanted to kind of go in on a little bit deeper, which was you talked about sort of making sure that parents and carers are on board. And I was hoping you might be able to sort of go into a little bit more detail about kind of how you can go about making sure that all of the stakeholders in the lives of the young people that you're working with can really go on that journey with them in terms of that kind of careers advice and guidance and that expert support.
Absolutely. So I'm talking more about primary schools, secondary schools. So I think it's really important for schools to communicate with parents and carers as to what career development is taking place. So at this time we're thinking about this, or this is an excellent resource for you to refer to and to find out more about these different career pathways and so on. So again, students can discuss these pathways with their parents and then come back to school. So I think when you have all of these stakeholders all together and in alignment, I think that really is beneficial to the student.
Couldn't agree more. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Frida. To let people know, we will put links to all of the brilliant resources, both digital and non-digital, that Frida's mentioned in this session in the notes that accompany this. But all that's left for me to say is thank you very much, Frida and Mary.
Fabulous. Thank you so much for having me. It was wonderful.